I've worked at Benny's Diner for 3 years now. It's not fancy, just a small place with red vinyl booths, a jukebox in the corner that only plays half the songs you pick, and coffee that's strong enough to wake the dead. But the people, most of them are good. The regulars know my name, ask about my mom's health, leave tips even when they can barely afford their own meals. But then there are people like him. It was a slow Tuesday afternoon. The lunch rush had died down, and I was wiping down tables when the bell over the door jingled. A man in a sharp suit walked in, his polished shoes clicking against the checkered floor. He had that look, the kind of guy who thinks the world owes him something. I put on my best customer service smile. "Afternoon, sir. Table for one?" He barely glanced at me. Obviously, I led him to a booth by the window. He slid in, brushed invisible dust off the table, and sighed like sitting here was some great burden. I handed him a menu. "Can I start you?" "Off with something to drink." "Water. No ice. And make sure the glass is clean." His tone was sharp, like he expected me to mess it up. I nodded. "Of course." When I came back with his water, he took a sip and made a face. "This tastes like tap." I kept my voice steady. "It is tap, sir. We don't have filtered." He rolled his eyes. "Figures." I took his order, a burger, no onions, extra pickles, and walked back to the kitchen, already feeling the tightness in my chest. I dealt with rude customers before, but something about this guy felt different. Like he wasn't just annoyed, he enjoyed making me feel small. When his food was ready, I brought it out carefully. "Here you go, sir. Let me know if you need anything else." He lifted the bun and scowled. I said extra pickles. I leaned in slightly. There were at least 5 pickles stacked on the patty. "Sir, I believe that is extra. Don't argue with me," he snapped. "I know what I asked for. Are you blind?" My hands clenched at my sides. I could feel the eyes of other customers flicking toward us. Old Mrs. Thompson, who came in every Tuesday for meatloaf, was watching with a frown. "I'll get you more pickles," I said quietly. I turned to leave, but then he muttered something under his breath. Just loud enough for me to catch. Typical. I froze. That word, the way he said it, it wasn't about pickles. I took a slow breath and kept walking. In the kitchen. My hands shook as I grabbed the pickle jar. Benny, the owner, glanced at me. "You okay, Marcus?" I forced a smile. "Just another charming customer," Benny sighed. He'd seen it all before. When I brought out the extra pickles, the man didn't even thank me. Just shoved them onto his burger with a smirk. I walked away before he could say anything else. Then karma. The man took a huge bite of his burger, chewed twice, and suddenly his face twisted. He grabbed his throat, coughing violently. His face turned red. He choked. For a second, I just stood there, stunned. Then instinct kicked in. I rushed over. "Sir? Are you?" He was gasping, eyes wide with panic. Without thinking, I yanked him up, wrapped my arms around his waist, and did the Heimlich maneuver just like we'd been trained. 1 thrust. 2 on the third. A chunk of food flew out of his mouth and landed on the table. He slumped forward. Wheezing, the whole diner had gone silent. The man coughed, his face still red, and slowly straightened up. He looked at me, really looked at me for the first time. I expected anger, more insults. But instead, his expression was different. Shocked. Maybe even ashamed. You saved me," he croaked. I wiped my hands on my apron. "Yeah, I did." He opened his mouth, closed it, then reached for his wallet with shaky hands. He pulled out a $100 bill and held it out. I shook my head. "Tips go in the jar by the register." His face flushed deeper. No, I mean, as a thank you, I looked him in the eye. I don't need your money, sir. Just your respect. For a long moment, he just stared at me. Then slowly, he nodded. He paid his bill in silence, his fingers trembling slightly as he counted out the cash. For a second, he hesitated, glancing at the tip jar by the register. Then, almost reluctantly, he pulled out a 20 and slid it. Inside more than he'd probably ever left before, he didn't say a word. Just straightened his tie, adjusted his suit jacket, and walked out, his polished shoes clicking against the floor a little less confidently than when he'd arrived. I let out a slow breath, my shoulders finally relaxing. Mrs. Thompson, sitting in her usual corner booth, caught my eye as I cleared the man's table. Her wrinkled face broke into a knowing smile. Some people learn the hard way, don't they? I chuckled, shaking my head as I wiped down the sticky spot where his water glass had been. Yeah, they do. She took a sip of her coffee, her eyes twinkling. You handled that real well, Marcus. Better than most would have, I shrugged, but her words warmed me. Mrs. Thompson had been coming here since before I was born. If she said I did all right, that meant something. The rest of my shift passed quietly. A few more customers trickled in, some regulars, a couple of tourists who'd gotten lost on their way to the beach. Nothing eventful. Just the usual clatter of plates, the hum of conversation. The occasional laugh, but when I clocked out that night, Benny called me over to the counter. He had that look, the one he got when he was trying to act gruff, but couldn't hide the softness underneath. Almost forgot, he muttered, shoving an envelope at me. Guy came back while you were on break. I frowned, opening it. Inside was the $100 bill, the same one the man had tried to hand me earlier. Benny scratched his beard. Said to give it to you. And that he was. What was it? He squinted, trying to remember. Then it clicked. Oh yeah. Sorry. I stared at the money, then at Benny. He actually said that. Benny snorted. Yeah. Looked like it hurt him too. I shook my head, tucking the envelope into my pocket. Maybe the guy wasn't completely hopeless after all. As I walked out into the cool evening air, I thought about how strange people could be. How someone could walk in thinking they were better than everyone else, only to be humbled by something as simple as needing help, and how sometimes, just sometimes, they walked out a little different than they came in. I smiled to myself and headed home. Guy came back while you were on break, Benny said. Said to give it to you. And that he was. What was it? He scratched his head. Oh yeah. Sorry. I tucked the money into my pocket, smiling to myself. Karma works fast sometimes. But kindness? That lasts even longer.